This episode was made possible by a joint effort by the California Institute for Behavioral Health Solutions and Advocates for Human Potential, Incorporated, and funded by the California Department of Healthcare Services Community Services Division. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Dose. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about pain management and a couple of factors of how, opiates are being used for specific injuries, and also maybe alternatives that we could discuss with our medical providers. So, Julian, what do you think about college-age youth who began using opiate medications due to an injury? How
So
does
yeah,
that connect with addiction?
I feel like that's one of the things that we don't really talk about that much. Um, I know that there are a lot of college athletes who are getting hurt, who maybe don't have a great understanding of what medicine to take, what medicine to use, different rehabilitation alternatives, and things like that for injuries. And I think that the earlier that you can provide education on what alternatives there are, what you can do, the better it would be.
Yeah, and that definitely connects with even not just college, but celebrity MLB baseball players. We just had one from the Angels that passed
Yeah.
away, I believe, almost a year ago, if not a little bit more. And that was directly due to an opiate overdose where he was acquiring at this point, it was drugs. It wasn't a medication, and sort through his
Yeah.
trainer. And opiates being a powerful pain reliever can cause, that a cycle to start because, with training comes a lot of muscle spasms, tendons, and issues with your body, and you don't get to recover sometimes because of the training. They train 7 days a week for a season,
Yeah.
even
That's
after a
another.
game.
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
a really good point about sports is that they're so like hyper competitive that a lot of the time a doctor can recommend take a week off, take 2 weeks off. But then the athlete themselves feel like maybe I shouldn't do that. If I do that, someone's going to replace me. Someone else is going to step up. And they're not putting themselves or like their health first. They're putting the game first. They're
Mhm.
putting the sport first. And that's a massive problem with so many young people in college because they feel like, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but for me, I felt like, you know what? I'm invincible. I'll be fine. I can handle this. I'm told I'm going to be completely okay. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt like that or who feels like that when they're like 19 or 20.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of the time you think to yourself like addiction isn't going to happen to me. That's not something that can affect me. That's something that happened to like a distant uncle or like a weird nephew or something like that. And I feel like no one ever thinks like addiction is going to happen to me. I feel like when you start taking these things, taking these opiates, and maybe it just starts like, well, I have a small pain, or maybe I tore this, or it's just for rehabilitation. And then it starts to be more like, well, I just need one for the day. Just got to take one every day.
Yeah.
Oh, I just need two a day. I just need three. I need
So it starts
four.
kind of with dependency, huh?
Yeah,
And then
it,
leads to
exactly. And then that leads to addiction. And then once you're in that phase, it becomes so hard to admit it because now this whole time that you thought like none of this could happen to me. This wasn't possible. I shouldn't be experiencing this. Now you are. You are experiencing it. You are going through it. It did happen to you. And now you have to one admit to everyone else, but also not just that, you have to admit to yourself. You got to admit to yourself that that's not true. You are susceptible. You are vulnerable. You are able to like be killed. Um, And I feel like the shame associated with that stops so many people from seeking treatment just because they don't want to admit to themselves like, oh, I fell into this addiction.
Right.
It's heartbreaking.
So yeah, you've definitely hit the components that come with sports, competitiveness, finding that edge, right? That new
Yeah.
thing that could help
That
you boost
extra
your workout.
1%.
Yeah. Oh man, and that makes a difference. I could guarantee you. So let's move on. We touched base on the last episode on a little bit starting a conversation with your doctor. Sometimes we're
Yeah.
giving prescription here. They're like, here's a prescription, and you just take it to the doctor. And the pharmacists usually do a pretty good job. Hey, take this every 7 hours, or whatever the instructions are. But they fail in general to tell us the chemicals, the side effects. I think asking those simple questions: what am I taking? What is it going to do? What are the side effects? Can I mix with anything else? Starting that conversation with our medical providers. Yeah, and I understand that they're on a tight schedule. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. You're giving 7 minutes, or you're giving 15 minutes, whatever the allotted time it is. There is time to ask those questions. And if you don't ask the question there, you still have when you pick up the actual prescription from the pharmacy, he's an educated medical provider too. Asking that question: what am I taking? What is this for? Side effects, and can I potentially overdose, would be one of the more drastic questions that we could ask, right? Starting that dialogue, how do you start the dialogue, Julian? Like, how do you
Well,
ask your medical provider when that
that
question?
that's the thing about these conversations is that I think the first step is to just get over the initial like awkwardness. Just be okay with being able to ask that question, like,
Mm,
what is this gonna do? How is this gonna affect me? Is there anything else I can do? And then also, don't be afraid to get a second opinion. Maybe this doctor says one thing, and then this other doctor says, actually, you don't need that. You can just do
mm-hmm.
this weird stretch or something. I think it really depends. Like what is your injury? How bad is it? Ask your doctor, like, what what is this prescription for? What does it do? Is there a smaller dose I can take? Can I take maybe half of this?
What about
I
an
feel like
alternative?
an alternative, a weird
Yeah,
stretch.
a weird
Uh,
stretch.
I think that I feel like we always take what doctors say like as fact, as this is the truth. This won't change, and I feel like sometimes we have to ask like what other alternatives are there. And
Yeah.
I think that if we don't ask those things, we're not going to get the answer just magically. Like, no one is going to come up to us and be like, hey, try XYZ. I think that we have to take the first step of, well, I don't want to take this. I don't want to take this medication. I heard it's dangerous, and I think I can recover in this other way.
And
I think
even if you're young and under 18, don't feel like you can't take control of your
yeah,
health.
yeah,
In essence, taking over. You can still ask the questions. You could ask your parents if you don't feel okay having the conversation with your medical provider, but you can still have the conversation with your doctor, and the doctors will treat you and like an adult and answer those questions. I don't think they'll be like, "Oh, I can't answer that question. You're under 18, just a kid." No, I think definitely you need to start taking control of your health and what you're putting in, and finding out what you're taking. It does, it could just be a simple antibiotic. Ask, why am I taking this? And
yeah,
it's okay. They're going to spend 2-3 minutes, but those 2-3 minutes of knowledge that they've gone for school for such a long time, all the information is available in front of you.
yeah. And
So, yeah.
it's also not just information that they have,
Hmm.
but experience.
Right.
They've seen 100 other people with your exact same injury. They've seen
Hmm.
100 other people who have also asked for alternatives. They've seen everything. So it's not just that they have this massive knowledge base. It's that they have experience in treating injuries. And
Right.
I think that you, to benefit from all of that experience, you have to be willing to ask them about different potentials, different dangers, different worries and warning signs and everything. I think one thing that we have to know about ourselves before we start taking any medication is our family history. So if there's a huge history of addiction and of drug abuse within our own family that we're aware of, maybe we should try to be a little bit worried about, or not worried, but just be aware of what is
Yeah.
in different medications, the abuse potential of different medications. All of that is incredibly important information when we're making decisions about things that are going to go into our bodies that we can't easily get back out.
Yeah.
Uh,
So definitely food for thought. Start the conversation with your medical provider. So we'll see you guys next week. And thank you for joining us on the Daily Dose with Julian and Juan Jimenez on this week's episodes of Pain Management. Start the conversation. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
stay safe.